Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary-General of the United Nations. It's an honor to have you.
Great to be back.
Obviously, Iran is front and center here. We heard just this week the Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, saying we need the ceasefire to hold, we need diplomatic conversations to continue. But what leverage does the UN have right now to prevent further escalation?
I think it's the dialogue, the diplomacy, the fact that our special envoy, Jean Arnaud, goes to Iran and then to Saudi Arabia. He puts the spotlight, he creates momentum. This is always very helpful because it keeps the door open to trying to find that space to say ceasefire. The talks in Pakistan, I don't like to say they collapsed. I think that they somehow have dialed down, but they'll be back again, and I think we have to keep doing that. Now, while we keep doing that, the UN has to keep engaging with all the parties. And the crisis in Iran, the Middle East, is very different from others. There are so many players, and the places of harm are many, from the Gulf to Lebanon to Iran, and now we're seeing the global impact. So the leverage we have is to give that platform and to put a light and to keep talking until such time as we can get some sense out of this and a ceasefire.
Energy and oil prices have also been front page news, but we're looking at food and fertilizer problems as well. When you look at food and the fact that 45 million additional people could be pushed into food insecurity during this war if it continues, what is the UN prepared to do? I'm reminded of the Black Sea Grain Initiative,
yes.
which you mobilized very quickly, but when will be the time to start pulling those levers here?
Well, we're already mobilized. We mobilized the task team that is under this time, the oversight of the Secretary-General. It's dealing with four pieces, with, of course, Jean Arnaud and our political side of the House that continue to navigate that space. In parallel, to making sure that the humanitarian response is front and center because people are suffering and we need to save lives. Then there is the navigation of the Straits of Hormuz, where these issues of fertilizer come up. I'm trying to find safe passage like the Black Sea Grain Initiative to get through. That's a little bit more difficult because what we're coming up against is that, well, that just won't happen. It has to be tied to a ceasefire, to a peace deal. And then the fourth, and I think we should not underestimate this, is where we as the UN come together collectively with our agencies, funds and programs, that expertise that is able to look at the trends, the foresight, the scenarios of what happens in each and every one of the countries within, and we're in about 140, 50 of them, what's happening on the ground? How is the fuel affecting the cost of living? What is happening to the planting season and fertilizer? How are we seeing when we say there is an energy crunch, often things go offline. So education is hit, the health systems are hit. Then we have inflation. Let's not forget that inflation is a reality, and that is interest rates, that is debt, that is crisis. So these pieces are what we also are trying to put a spotlight on and to mitigate against those. You'd have seen a number of policy briefs here at the bank that have been shared with the member states. And I think one that is important to look at is where four of our entities in Africa have actually said, look, this is what the impact means for Africa, for instance. And this is with the African Development Bank, with the African Union, Economic Commission for Africa and UNDP. And more of that's coming. So if we can funnel that in, then we can begin to find some of the policy solutions to this crisis. I think what's really clear is that crisis after crisis, this is becoming a norm. So how do we navigate that, and how do we not use the same tools that don't work? And that what we would say is that don't just open a window. Right now we need you to open the door. So the financing to deal with fiscal constraints that many countries will have, that requires more than a quick fix. It is short, it is medium, it is long term.
And these compounding crises that you mentioned that we've seen now for 6 years running have also created setbacks for the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. I am noticing, it's clear, a whole new kind of language around development. You're hearing things like, what's bankable, what's investable, trade, not aid. I understand that that's a flip in a mindset and maybe not necessarily a flip in goals or priorities, but how do you perceive that, and do you think that that's effective?
I think we have to, there's a rebirthing and a resetting of the international cooperation amongst us all. We are more equal. We are so joined up globally. It's not 1945, it's 2026. Many things will not stand today. And we've seen huge step back from ODA, from trusted partners. And we've also seen stronger South-South cooperation. We've seen the new era of technology. We are seeing growing populations and they are young. But we're also seeing still 3 wars, a pandemic. We say climate crisis is very real in everyone's life. And last but not least, multilateralism, international cooperation is taking a big hit. So yes, the language is changing, but I don't think they've understood that the dynamics around this will make it such that we will have a new global order. And that new global order has to be more equal, more representative, and much more functional. We don't see that now.
Let me ask you about that, actually, because I was really struck in Davos when Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said the international order, as we've known it since 1945, is not in transition, it's ruptured. And I would ask you, the UN, having just turned 80, and obviously one of those organizations that came out of that moment in history, is multilateralism ruptured, or is it reinventing?
It's rebirthing. It's rebirthing, and I often liken it to, it's not the same. The League of Nations failed, and out of that came the birth of the United Nations. And I think the center's not holding in the United Nations as we know it. We see the charter under threat, the values and the principles, and we see the founders stepping back. And I think that today a rebirth will need to happen. For us to protect this space is so very important for the most vulnerable of our countries in the world. It is still a space that is needed. It is still a space that matters to billions of people. There is often not a good reality, but the aspirations of people living a life of dignity on a planet that we can all live on is really relevant. It's real for people. And so therefore, how do we protect this space? We have a few ideas we put on the table for member states at the UN to say, okay, we need to be more efficient, more responsive, less fragmented, a better footprint in countries, but it's a work in progress. It's very difficult to change power dynamics, to change old habits, to change systems.
You have a very deep legacy on gender equality issues and recent campaigns like We the Women, Women Rise for All.
Yes.
I'm curious, how would increased female leadership change the trajectory of some of these crises we're seeing right now?
I think it would be more inclusive. I think it would be longer term. I think that we tend to see the pain points people ignore. I think I often say for men it's about winning a war, for us it's about winning the peace. And we know that because the burdens of all these struggles are on the shoulders of women and children. We've seen women's leadership change the way we look at things in the UN. We are now 50% of senior leadership. We are over 60% in the field. And there is much deeper, broader attention to issues in the way in which we manage our teams. I do think there is a drought in leadership right now in the world. And if we could bring more women leaders into that, I do think we will see a difference. But, here we go. It's the first Secretary-General that's a woman should happen.
I was just about to ask, and here we are. It's been 80 years. There's never been a woman Secretary-General. I'm not going to ask you to speculate on candidates, but just do you think the time is right, and do you think the will is there?
The time's always been right. It's whether this is the moment. And I think that if we look at the state of the world today, it is the moment. We need a lot of healing. We need direction. We need a leave no one behind. We need a set of skills that women have that will work with men and get us ahead of many of these very contentious issues, many of the atrocities that we see. We need to get over that. We need to get beyond that. And I think that a woman, it's time. And I think that we have many women. We will see many women who will come forward in the next few weeks to dialogue with us at the United Nations, and we're very much looking forward to that.
Amina Mohammed, DSG, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.